This topic idea came from essaywriter.org. Should parents be held responsible for their children's actions? On this one, I can say I'm a little bit split because I can understand why they should be held responsible, but I also feel like children are individuals. As individuals, they have, you could say, freedom of choice, freedom of behavior. As a result, I don't think it's fair that a parent should take the blame entirely under certain circumstances. And I hate that because I like to be a definitive person. I'm not in the gray area ever with my opinion. I like to commit to the dark side or the light side. By the end of the video, my goal is to, after I go over beliefs of why they should but why they shouldn't, I want to be able to make a decision and commit to one side of the argument. We'll see if you guys agree or disagree. I believe that they should be held for the actions of their children, but I want to say more so during the time that you can understand that this child isn't quite of reasoning age yet. And I don't like to use age as a determining factor for guilt because we know that it is possible for certain individuals in society to experience maturity sooner than others. Others may have maturity a little later because they matured in other things, but when it comes to conduct, I don't think it's fair for us to say that every 8-year-old, for instance, is going to be on the same level, is going to be comparable in temperament and behavior in general. I think if there is plenty of, you could say, behavioral journaling performed on a kid, at that point, the level of detail in that journal could exonerate a parent from guilt. For instance, if this is a child who has been problematic from day one and they have done examinations, they have been to therapists, doctors, they have been to special education, coaching, let's say that they have received both parental intervention in addition to professional intervention. Parental meaning the parents are following proper parenting techniques at home that are supposed to promote good behavior, good discipline. But for some reason, this child is just not getting it individually. They're somehow actively deciding to go against the parents' teachings. Then I think that should exonerate the parents by some percentage. Now, if you combine the parents' efforts with the efforts of the parents of taking this kid to get professionally examined, intervened by, and they're still rebels, then at that point, I think it would be fair to exonerate the parents by 100%, because there are some folks who, even if you raise them correctly, even if you provide them education, shelter, maybe this child is going to grow up to be an adult that still causes problems, that still gets themselves in trouble. Could we say that we would hold an adult child to the same standard as a smaller one? Probably not, definitely not. By that statement, why would we blame parents for an adult child's decisions? And that's where it becomes difficult for me, because if you're a parent, I don't think your job as a parent is ever done in this life. I don't care how old your kids are. At some point, they'll still continue to need guidance. And just because one child is, I guess, better suited for adult life than others from an earlier age, it doesn't mean they don't need leadership in their lives. Maybe for some people it doesn't come in the form of parents, it may come in the form of managers or teachers. With that said, I think that parents should be held responsible when it is provable, when you can supply evidence that they had shortcomings, and especially if when those shortcomings were pointed out to them, like we tried to make them aware of the potential consequences of certain neglects that they may be performing, whether voluntary or involuntary, if they have received this information and they decide to deny it, to ignore it, to not acknowledge it, to just disregard it altogether, at that point, you begin to make yourself guilty. You begin to make yourself likely responsible for a child's decisions, because at that point, you, who has the authority over this person at this moment in time, are receiving important information that is trying to keep you from bad experiences with this person. You have the authority to decide upon allowing that intervention to happen or not, and you're choosing to dismiss it and act like it's not there, like it's not real, whatever your reasons are. If something does happen after that, then you definitely carry a degree of guilt at that point. Now, when it comes to you not being guilty, you not being accountable for what children decide, again, I think we need a definition that's completely fail-proof for when it becomes your individual responsibility to experience consequences. Like, at what point are you able to understand and comprehend the consequences for everything? Maybe you cannot anticipate that, say, if you mix certain cleaning chemicals, you're going to create a toxic fume. I want to say that's still your responsibility, even if you didn't know that was going to happen. There was information available to you as you held this item. There was a label on it expressing the dangers of you mixing things. So at that point, you cannot free yourself of that responsibility, because again, that information was accessible to you. You just decided to not do your part of making sure that something as innocent as that is something that is doable. If you're handling something that's dangerous in its nature, I would expect that you naturally have an urge to find out more about it, more about how it can be threatening. That way you don't experience surprises. Could we blame a parent for a child deciding to steal the parent's car and go driving, wreck it, or hit somebody, and off that person that they hit? That, I would say, your responsibility as a parent is to make sure children don't have access to things that could be damaging in a large scale. Make sure that your keys are well hidden. Make sure that your money is well hidden. Make sure that they cannot access dangerous utensils. That is your responsibility, to monitor that. Now, if outside your watch, these children who have known that those items are dangerous and they have the potential to hurt, damage off people, etc., and they still decide to insist on trying to find a way to get their hands on those things, and they end up causing harm with those things, then at that point, I don't think you should be held accountable for that, because you at least did your part of instructing a child, hey, anything that looks dangerous, anything that you know is dangerous, do not operate it without consulting someone, without supervision, or without you being of proper age to handle some things. Once you do that, I think that it wouldn't be fair to hold you accountable, because you have taught it and you have emphasized it every single day. You saw your kid about to do something stupid and dangerous, you intervened, you made sure that they didn't proceed with such dangerous deed, and you explained it to them. I think at that point your job is done. But to permanently attach responsibility to you over decisions that this individual is going to make, I don't think that's fair. That makes it difficult. It makes it really hard for you to live a fair life if your mistakes are going to be associated with someone else. Like, oh my God, my child did something wrong, therefore, by extension, I get a point. I did it wrong. I don't think that's fair. I don't think it makes sense. In conclusion, after expressing those thoughts, I want to say that your parents are not responsible for your actions. But I do believe that your parents can have an impact on what kinds of behaviors, decisions, acts you may feel inclined to commit. If you don't have parents that represented good influence on you, that inculcated you with proper things, with mindful things, with useful things, I think that neglect will result in you being susceptible to making poorer decisions. But if your parents gave you all that, let's say that they did the very, very best they could, the definition of reasonable parenting, and you still messed up, why would it be your parents' fault? Your parents supplied you with the tools and information to give you a full life, to help you not suffer like that. If you decide to do stupid things because you like the thrill of stupid things, whatever it is that inspires you to do stupid things, that is an issue of you being impressionable. You value that high, and that has consequences. Why would it be your parents' fault if your parents have not promoted you be addicted to that high, to not be able to control those urges? In conclusion, no, I don't think your parents are responsible. But I think that your parents could be blamed for how likely you are to make poor decisions. But if the poor decision making happens on your part, I still don't think it's fair for you to blame them when you probably had chances from other sources at distinguishing right from wrong. And I think we could forgive you as a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. But at some point, after you're able to comprehend words, sentences, and consequences, like once you find out the meaning of you no longer living and you being injured and how it's bad, how it's detrimental, all those things, once you can comprehend that, I think it becomes your responsibility. But if somehow you got your hands on all that stuff, somehow you're able to commit heinous acts being really, really little, and your parents were not doing their part at keeping you safe from accessing those things, then I think we could blame them then. But once you, as an individual, have your own conscience type of thing, then I think that it falls on you. Well, there you guys have it. That's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope I did a good job trying to describe this and explaining why I am siding with one end of the argument. I think it's a question that is not nuanced, and that's why I liked it, because it forces you to consider many things, and I tried to keep it as simple as possible, but obviously the factors to consider could go even deeper. Feel free to do that in this comment section if you feel compelled to, but I honestly think that there's only so much we can blame our upbringing for once we have comprehension, and at some point you just gotta learn to accept things and be responsible. Being responsible is a pretty cool thing. All right, that's it. Bye.